Foundations of Education. Complete audio study script for examination preparation. How to use this audio script. Listen to this material repeatedly. On the first listening, understand the ideas. On the second listening, concentrate on definitions and lists. On the third listening, pause after every examination question and try to answer before hearing the answer. Remember this important principle from the course guide. The objectives at the beginning of each unit tell you what you are expected to know, and reviewing those objectives after studying increases your chances of passing. The course has two major modules. Module 1, Philosophical and Psychological Perspective. Module 2, Historical and Sociological Perspective. Course Guide. Meaning and Purpose of EDU 111. EDU 111 is Foundations of Education. The course introduces the foundation fields of education. These include philosophy of education, psychology of education, sociology of education. The course explains that teachers need knowledge of these areas because teaching is becoming increasingly scientific. Psychology of education gives teachers insight into student behavior and learning. Philosophy of education explains the purposes of education as derived from the philosophy and values of society. Sociology of education brings out the needs, values, and aspirations of people upon which education is based. Major course aims. You should understand the general concept of philosophy, the relevance of philosophy to education, philosophical issues in education, psychology in general, educational psychology, learning theories, transfer of learning, motivation and its relevance to learning, the growth of education in Nigeria, agencies involved with education, information that helps teachers understand the field of education. Overall examination objectives. After studying EDU 111, you should be able to define philosophy, psychology, and sociology. Explain learning theories. Explain transfer of learning. Explain motivation in relation to learning. Discuss equality of educational opportunities. Explain the growth of education in Nigeria. Discuss types of education in Nigeria. Discuss educational trends in Nigeria. Explain the role and functions of educational agencies. Explain factors that influence education. Discuss education and society. Discuss social mobility and social stratification. Assessment. There are three main assessment components: self-assessment exercises, tutor-marked assignments, final written examination. The course guide states that assignments account for 50%, while the final examination accounts for 50%. The final examination lasts 3 hours and covers all areas of the course. There are 5 tutor-marked assignments, each carrying 10%. Module 1. Philosophical and Psychological Perspective. Module 1 contains 7 units. Philosophy of Education, Meaning and Relevance. Equality of Educational Opportunity. Psychology of Education. Introduction to Learning Theories. Readiness to Learning. Motivation and its relation to learning. Transfer of learning. Unit 1. Philosophy of Education, Meaning and Relevance. Objectives. By the end of this unit, you should be able to define philosophy. Explain speculative philosophy. Explain prescriptive philosophy. Explain analytic philosophy. Define philosophy of education. Outline its scope. Meaning of philosophy. The word philosophy comes from the Greek words philia, meaning loving, and sophia, meaning wisdom. Therefore, philosophy means the love of wisdom. Philosophy can also be understood as a personal attitude to life and the universe. A mature philosophical attitude is searching, critical, open-minded, and tolerant. It is willing to examine different sides of an issue. Philosophy is also a method of reflective thinking and reasoned inquiry. In simple terms, philosophy means thinking carefully, critically, and rationally about fundamental questions concerning knowledge, reality, values, and life. 3 modes of philosophy. Remember. SPA. Speculative. Prescriptive. Analytic. 1. Speculative philosophy. Speculative philosophy is systematic thinking about everything that exists. Its major concern is to see things as a whole. It searches for order and wholeness across knowledge and experience. Easy memory. Speculative equals what is the whole reality? 2. Prescriptive philosophy. Prescriptive philosophy establishes standards for assessing values, judging conduct, and appraising art. It asks questions about good and bad, right and wrong, beautiful and ugly. It recommends principles for deciding what actions and qualities are worthwhile. Easy memory. Prescriptive equals what ought to be? 3. Analytic philosophy. Analytic philosophy focuses on words and meanings. It examines concepts such as course, mind, academic freedom, equality of opportunity. It asks what these terms mean in different contexts. Easy memory. Analytic equals what exactly does this word or concept mean? Philosophy of education. Philosophy of education is the application of the knowledge of philosophy to the solution of educational problems, concepts, and theories. It examines concepts such as equality, teaching, autonomy, freedom, morality. It also examines educational aims, schools of philosophy, and their views of education. 3 modes applied to educational philosophy. Educational philosophy is speculative when it establishes theories concerning man, society, and the world. Prescriptive when it seeks desired educational goals and recommends ways of solving educational problems. Analytic when it clarifies speculative and prescriptive statements. Relevance of philosophy of education. Philosophy of education. Encourages critical examination of issues. Encourages justification for actions. Helps teachers understand educational reforms. Relates educational practices to societal values. Gives insight into what education is and the role education should perform. Gives more importance to the soundness of an argument than the authority of the person making the argument. Helps remove prejudice and personal interests. Encourages an open mind. Presents different schools of thought about education. Helps teachers understand classical and modern educational ideas and choose better approaches. Philosophy as a rational activity. Reasoning involves deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, clarity in language, regard for evidence. Deductive reasoning leads to a necessarily true conclusion. Inductive reasoning leads to a causally true conclusion. Philosophy is rational because it enables us to scrutinize our beliefs and determine whether they are rationally tenable. Exam memory. If asked, what are the 3 modes of philosophy? Answer: speculative, prescriptive, and analytic. If asked, What does each mean? Speculative, systematic thinking about everything that exists. Prescriptive, standards for values, conduct, and worthwhile actions. Analytic, clarification of words, concepts, and meanings. Self-assessment focus. Be prepared to. Define philosophy. Explain the three modes. Explain philosophy of education. Explain why philosophy of education is relevant to teachers. Unit 2. Equality of educational opportunity. Objectives. You should be able to explain equal opportunity in education. Discuss factors that prevent equal educational opportunity. Recommend ways of tackling those factors. Meaning. The phrase equality of educational opportunity is difficult and problematic because there are both practical and conceptual problems. The practical problem asks, how can equal opportunities actually be achieved? The conceptual problem asks, what exactly does equal educational opportunity mean? The course discusses three interpretations. First interpretation. Every individual should receive an equal share of educational resources irrespective of potential ability. Second interpretation. Children with the same measured ability should be treated in the same way irrespective of environmental factors. Third interpretation. Positive discrimination should favor educationally underprivileged children in order to remedy their educational disadvantage. The module explains problems with all three interpretations. The first may produce unequal outcomes because individuals differ in ability. The second conflicts with social justice. The third involves discrimination and may also be considered unfair. Factors responsible for inequality. Important factors include family background, wealth or poverty, parents' educational level, underage children, intellectual ability, poor health, unfavorable environment, rural-urban differences, differences in school facilities, differences in availability of qualified teachers. Family background is especially important because wealthy and educated parents may provide better schools, books, libraries, facilities, moral support, and financial support. Underage children. Sending children to school too early may negatively affect their development. Rural environment. Children in rural areas may have more domestic responsibilities and fewer educational facilities. The course uses the educational gap between northern and southern Nigeria as an example of educational inequality. Strategies for bridging the gap. Government strategies include bursaries, scholarships, universal basic education, improvement of rural schools, construction of UB blocks, establishment of Al-Mayuri schools, fixing the average age for primary 1 at 6 years. Exam question. Discuss equality of educational opportunity and explain factors that prevent it. Your answer should contain definition or explanation, 3 interpretations, factors causing inequality, government strategies, conclusion. Unit 3. Psychology of education. Objectives. You should be able to define psychology. List branches of psychology. Define educational psychology. Explain its scope. Discuss psychology's contribution to education. Development of the meaning of psychology. Psychology was originally a branch of philosophy. For important definitions developed historically. First, psychology as the science of soul. The word psychology comes from psyche equals soul. Logos equals science. Second, psychology as the science of mind. This developed from the idea that an individual consists of body and mind. Third, psychology as the science of consciousness. This definition focused on human consciousness. Fourth, psychology as the science of behavior. This became important because behavior can be observed, verified, measured, and studied scientifically. The module therefore presents psychology as the study of individual behavior involving overt actions resulting from responses to stimuli. Branches of psychology. Memorize these. General psychology. Human psychology. Animal psychology. Genetic psychology. Developmental psychology. Educational psychology. Abnormal psychology. Social psychology. Experimental psychology. Physiological psychology. Industrial psychology. Military psychology. Clinical psychology. Environmental psychology. Evolutionary psychology. Educational psychology. Educational psychology is a branch of psychology concerned with applying psychological theories or findings to education. Scope of educational psychology. There are three major areas. 1. The learner. This includes developmental characteristics, individual differences, intelligence, personality, mental health. 2. The learning process. This includes learning theories, motivation, factors affecting learning, rewards and punishment, class size, teacher expectations, teacher-student interaction, diagnosis of learning problems. 3. Evaluation. This includes evaluation of learning outcomes, statistical methods used in educational research, contributions to theory of education. Psychology helps teachers understand developmental characteristics of learners, understand the nature of learning, provide for individual differences, know effective teaching methods, contributions to practice of education. Psychology contributes to curriculum planning, classroom management, use of teaching aids and materials, timetabling, school administration, exam memory. Educational psychology equals learner plus learning process plus evaluation. Theory equals developmental characteristics plus nature of learning plus individual differences plus teaching methods. Practice equals curriculum plus classroom management plus teaching aids plus timetable plus administration. Unit 4. Introduction to Learning Theories. Objectives. You should be able to define learning, enumerate theories of learning, explain principles of learning, discuss classroom implications, Definition of learning. The module defines learning as a psychological process that refers to any change of behavior that is relatively permanent and could be attributed to a result of some particular experience, observation, or training. 3 things must exist. Change in behavior.
Relative permanence.
Experience, observation, or training. Remember.
P-E.
Change.
Permanence.
Experience. Types of learning. 6 types are identified. Classroom learning, social learning, incidental learning, problem-solving learning, verbal learning, skill learning. Meaning of theory. A theory is a systematic or coherent set of ideas, principles, or laws proposed to improve understanding, control, and prediction of natural phenomena. 2 major categories of learning theories. Category 1, SR theories. SR means stimulus response. They are also described as behaviorist, associationist, or connectionist theories. Examples: Pavlov, Thorndike, Skinner, Watson, Guthrie. Hull. Category 2, cognitive field theories. Examples:
Gestalt.
Field theory by Kurt Lewin. Tolman's sign theory. The experiments behind these theories involved animals such as dogs, cats, rats, pigeons, and monkeys. Pavlov's principles of learning. There are 4 important principles. 1. Reinforcement. Repeated presentation of the reinforcer strengthens the behavior. 2. Extinction. Learned behavior may disappear when reinforcement is withdrawn. 3. Stimulus generalization. A learner may respond to stimuli similar to the original stimulus. 4. Stimulus discrimination. The learner distinguishes the relevant stimulus from other stimuli. Memory.
RAGD.
Reinforcement. Extinction. Generalization. Discrimination. Thorndike's principles. 6 principles are identified. Law of effect. Law of exercise. Law of readiness. Law of intensity. Law of recency. Law of multiple responses. Law of effect. The module's model answer explains it in terms of satisfaction and dissatisfaction following a response. Easy meaning. Easy meaning. A satisfying result strengthens learning. Law of exercise. Repetition strengthens the stimulus-response connection. Easy meaning. Practice strengthens learning. Law of readiness. Learning occurs effectively when the learner is physiologically and psychologically ready. Easy meaning. Ready learner. Better learning. Classroom application. Teachers should give learners opportunities to practice. Provide opportunities for relearning. Give assignments, exercises, and drills. Use adequate teaching materials. Reward correct responses. Consider motivation. Consider previous experience. Make materials relevant. Consider personal adjustment. Examination focus. Know the difference. Pavlov equals 4 principles. Thorndike equals 6 laws. This is a very likely memorization area. Unit 5. Readiness to learning. Objectives. You should be able to define readiness to learn. List factors affecting readiness. Explain the factors. Explain how readiness can be built. Definition. Readiness is a state of body, mind, and feeling produced by a combination of growth or maturation and experience, which implies fitness and ability to embark on some new task. In simple words, readiness is the level of preparedness that enables a learner to learn a new task. Law of readiness. Thorndike proposed that before an organism learns, it has to be ready. The learner needs to be prepared before establishing a stimulus-response connection. Factors determining readiness. 1. Maturation. Maturation is growth and development that occurs mostly independently of deliberate effort. Certain learning cannot occur until relevant body structures and organs have developed. For example, the brain must reach sufficient development. 2. Experience. Experience means previous learning or entry behavior. Entry behavior means the knowledge and skills a learner is expected to possess before learning a new task. Simple rule. Basic skills come before complex skills. 3. Relevance of materials and methods. Even when a learner is mature and experienced, learning may fail if the materials or teaching methods are unsuitable or irrelevant. 4. Motivation. A motivated learner is more prepared to learn. 5. Positive attitude. A positive attitude supports readiness. 6. Personal adjustment. The learner's ability to adjust personally and emotionally also matters. Building readiness. Method 1. Preschool experiences. Examples. Writing, painting, counting, vocabulary development, sharing, cooperation, competition, group work. Following rules. Picture study, book study. Method 2. Readiness programs. Children who are not ready should be identified. Use diagnostic tests. Other identification procedures. Remedial classes. Method 3. Building self-confidence. Teachers can build self-confidence through frequent praise, healthy competition, giving students responsibilities, individual counseling, exam memory, readiness factors, maturation, experience, relevant materials and methods, motivation, positive attitude, personal adjustment, building readiness, preschool experience, diagnosis and remediation, self-confidence. Unit 6. Motivation and its relation to learning. Objectives. You should be able to define motivation. Explain theories of motivation. List types of motivation. Apply motivation theories in the classroom. Meaning of motivation. Motivation answers. Why does a person behave in the manner he behaves? Another definition in the module is: motivation is the force or condition within the organism that impels it to act or respond. Motivation may also involve biological, social, and learned factors that initiate, sustain, and stop goal-directed behavior. Types of motivation. 1. Extrinsic motivation. This comes from outside the individual. Examples include external rewards. 2. Intrinsic motivation. This comes from within the individual. It results from self-satisfaction associated with participating in a learning activity. 3. Achievement motivation. This is motivation for accomplishment, competence, and success. Memory.
EIA.
Extrinsic. Intrinsic. Achievement. Theories of motivation. There are 6. 1. Hedonistic theory. Human actions are triggered mainly by the desire for pleasure and avoidance of pain. Memory. Hedonistic equals pleasure versus pain. 2. Physiological equilibrium theory. The balanced physiological state is called homeostasis. When the balance is disturbed, needs arise and motivate activity. Example: hunger leads to eating. Thirst leads to drinking. 3. Drive reduction theory. A drive is a state of tension resulting from a need or deficiency. The individual acts to reduce the tension. Memory. Need to drive to action to reduction of tension. 4. Cybernetic theory. Motivation is seen as arising intrinsically from within the individual. Examples include curiosity, competence, reciprocity. 5. Conditioning theory. Motivation is explained through antecedents or consequences of behavior. People act in anticipation of positive consequences. 6. Maslow's growth theory. Motivation moves from lower to higher levels of need. Maslow's hierarchy from low to highs. Physiological needs. Safety needs. Belongingness and love affiliation. Self-esteem.
Self-actualisation.
Memory. PSBSS. Physiological. Safety. Belongingness. Self-esteem.
Self-actualisation.
How teachers motivate students. Teachers should make lessons interesting. Expose students to lesson objectives. Structure learning so students experience early success. Reinforce learning. Give continuous feedback. Use incentives wisely. Encourage healthy competition. Make learning meaningful. Relate learning to students' experiences. Develop curiosity. Make learning pleasant and worthwhile. Develop positive attitudes toward learning. Exam answer. If asked, how would you motivate students to learn? Start with: motivation is a force or condition within or without the learner that compels him or her to act or respond to a learning situation. Then explain interesting lessons, objectives, early success, reinforcement, feedback, healthy competition, relevance, and curiosity. Unit 7. Transfer of learning. Objectives. You should be able to define transfer of learning. Explain 3 forms of transfer. Explain strategies for maximizing transfer. Meaning. Transfer of learning occurs when previous learning influences learning of a new response. The module states that the influence which learning one task has on subsequent learning of another is called transfer of learning. Simple meaning. Simple meaning. What you learned before affects what you are learning now. 3 forms. 1. Positive transfer. Previous learning helps subsequent learning. Example. Learning addition of 3-digit numbers can facilitate addition of 4-digit numbers. 2. Negative transfer. Previous learning interferes with or makes subsequent learning difficult. 3. Zero transfer. Previous learning has no effect on the new task. Memory. Positive equals helps. Negative equals interferes. 0 equals no effect. Conditions for transfer. When stimuli differ but responses are the same, positive transfer can occur. The greater the similarity between the two situations, the greater the positive transfer. How teachers facilitate transfer. Teachers should ensure thorough mastery. Expose learners to different but related problems. Teach principles and their applications. Give opportunities to apply principles to different situations. Develop positive attitudes toward transfer. Develop transfer consciousness. Relate curriculum to past and expected experiences. Give attention to factors that facilitate positive transfer. Module 2.